Marcus Wheeler arrived home 3 hours early and heard his wife's voice through the bedroom door. "Once we drain his accounts, we're free. He'll never see it coming." The voice on speakerphone replied, "How much are we talking?" Elena laughed, that beautiful laugh Marcus had fallen in love with 15 years ago. 1.2 million. Maybe more if we time it right. The other voice belonged to James Chen, Marcus's best friend since law school, his business partner, the man who'd been best man at their wedding. But Marcus wasn't just any businessman. He was a corporate attorney specializing in financial fraud, and they'd just made a fatal mistake. Marcus Wheeler was 42 years old, senior partner at Wheeler & Associates in downtown Chicago, with a reputation for destroying white-collar criminals in court. He'd built his career on being methodical, patient, and absolutely ruthless when someone tried to steal what wasn't theirs. For 15 years, he'd been married to Elena, a former marketing executive who'd stopped working 5 years ago, claiming she wanted to focus on their home. They had no children by choice. A decision Marcus now realized had been more strategic than he'd understood. James Chen had been his closest friend for 20 years, his law school study partner, his business co-founder, the person he trusted most outside his marriage. Hearing them conspire to rob him felt like standing on ground that had suddenly turned to quicksand. If you've ever been betrayed by the people closest to you, if you've ever discovered that trust was just a weapon used against you, subscribe right now. Because what this attorney does to the people who tried to steal from him will be the most satisfying takedown you'll ever witness. Hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to show you what happens when you try to rob someone who destroys criminals for a living. Marcus stood frozen in the hallway of his Lincoln Park brownstone, his briefcase still in hand, listening to his wife and best friend plan his financial destruction. He'd come home early because he felt unwell, a headache that had been building all afternoon. Now he understood it was instinct, his subconscious recognizing something was wrong before his conscious mind caught up. He moved silently toward the bedroom, his years of courtroom experience kicking in. Evidence. He needed evidence. He pulled out his phone, opened the voice recording app, and held it near the door. Elena's voice continued, excited, conspiratorial. "I've already talked to that divorce attorney, the aggressive one who handles high net worth cases. She says if we do this right, if we establish the domestic violence narrative first, I can get a restraining order. Once I have that, I control the house, the accounts, everything. Marcus will be locked out before he knows what's happening." James's voice, tinny through the speakerphone. "And you're sure he doesn't suspect anything? About us?" "Please," Elena scoffed. "Marcus is brilliant in court, but he's oblivious at home. He works 80 hours a week. He hasn't noticed I've been withdrawing emotionally for 2 years. He definitely hasn't noticed I'm in love with his best friend." They both laughed. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Not heartbreak exactly, but a crystallizing clarity. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a conspiracy to commit financial fraud, identity theft, and false accusations of domestic violence. As a prosecutor would see it, this was multiple felonies with aggravating circumstances. As Marcus saw it, this was the case of his career, and he was going to win. "When do we move?" James asked. "Next week," Elena replied. "Marcus has that big trial starting Monday. He'll be distracted, exhausted. I'll have him sign some household paperwork that's actually power of attorney documents. Once I have control of the accounts, we transfer everything to the offshore account you set up, file for divorce with the DV allegations, and by the time he figures out what happened, we're in the Cayman Islands with his money." Marcus had heard enough for now. He backed away silently, left his brownstone as quietly as he'd entered, and sat in his Mercedes in the parking garage for 30 minutes, thinking. His legal mind was already working through strategies, building the case, identifying evidence he'd need. But underneath the professional calculation was something else. Rage. Not the hot, impulsive kind that led to mistakes. The cold, patient kind that led to total destruction. Marcus wasn't going to just stop them from stealing his money. He was going to ensure they paid for every moment of betrayal, every lie, every plan to destroy his life. And he was going to do it legally, methodically, and so thoroughly that they'd never recover. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus became someone else. At home with Elena, he was the same distracted, workaholic husband she expected. He kissed her goodbye each morning, worked late, came home exhausted, never indicated he knew anything. It was the performance of his life, and he was motivated by the knowledge that every day of acting was another day of evidence collection. But away from Elena, Marcus was building a case that would have made any prosecutor weep with joy. First, he hired a private investigator, not just any PI, but Rebecca Martinez, former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes and infidelity cases. He met her in a coffee shop in a suburb 40 minutes from Chicago, somewhere Elena would never go. I need complete surveillance on my wife and my business partner, Marcus explained, sliding a folder across the table. Phone records, GPS tracking, financial transactions, everywhere they go, everyone they meet. I need proof of an affair and proof of conspiracy to commit fraud. Rebecca reviewed the information, her expression neutral. Are you prepared for what we might find? I've already found it, Marcus said. I just need it documented legally. Admissible in court, comprehensive enough that no defense attorney can create reasonable doubt. That's thorough. I don't do things halfway. The surveillance revealed exactly what Marcus expected, and worse. Elena and James had been having an affair for 2 years, meeting at expensive hotels charged to business accounts James controlled. They'd already moved $300,000 from the business into accounts Marcus didn't have access to, money James had disguised as legitimate business expenses and vendor payments. Elena had been researching offshore banking, divorce attorneys who specialized in destroying wealthy husbands, and how to file false domestic violence claims convincingly. The documentation was extensive, damning, and growing every day. But Marcus wasn't ready to move yet. He needed them to commit the actual crime, to cross the line from conspiracy into action. Because attempted fraud was one thing, completed fraud with aggravating circumstances was something else entirely. So Marcus did something that would have seemed insane if he weren't absolutely certain of his plan. He made it easier for them to steal from him. He created a new bank account at a different institution, one Elena didn't know about. He transferred exactly $1.2 million into it. But this wasn't regular money. Through his FBI contacts from years of prosecuting financial crimes, Marcus arranged something special. The money was marked in the federal database. Every bill's serial number registered as part of an ongoing fraud investigation. If anyone tried to move it, spend it, or transfer it, federal authorities would be notified automatically. It was a trap disguised as an opportunity. Then Marcus did something even more calculated. He created fake documents, sloppy fake documents, leaving them in places Elena would find them. Bank statements showing the new account, password information written on a note card, accidentally left in his desk drawer at home. He made it look like he was trying to hide money from her in preparation for divorce, which would make her more desperate to access it first. He was baiting the trap with exactly what she wanted most. Meanwhile, Marcus was documenting everything legally. He installed security cameras in his home office, visible ones that he told Elena were for home security, and hidden ones she didn't know about. He had his lawyer draft a postnuptial agreement that he never asked Elena to sign, but that established the separate nature of his business assets and premarital wealth. He created a timeline of every withdrawal Elena had made from joint accounts, every suspicious charge, every anomaly. He was building a prosecution case from the inside. The beautiful thing about being a corporate fraud attorney was that Marcus knew exactly what evidence prosecutors needed, what would stand up in court, what would survive defense challenges. He knew how to document intent, how to prove conspiracy, how to establish pattern and practice. He was creating a textbook case of financial fraud, and the defendants had no idea they were being documented. 2 weeks after discovering the conspiracy, Marcus's PI called with an update. They've moved up the timeline, Rebecca said. They're planning to execute this weekend. James has already transferred the offshore account funds. Elena has an appointment with her divorce attorney Monday morning. They're moving this weekend while you're supposedly at that trial in Detroit. Marcus smiled. The Detroit trial was real, but he'd arranged for co-counsel to handle it. He was going to be right here, watching every move they made. Perfect, he said. Let them move forward. Make sure every camera is working. I want every second documented. That Saturday morning, Marcus told Elena he was leaving for Detroit, trial prep all weekend. He kissed her goodbye, pulled his Mercedes out of the garage, and drove exactly 2 blocks before parking in a rented space. He walked back to a position where he could see his brownstone, connected to the hidden cameras via his laptop, and settled in to watch his wife steal from him. It didn't take long. 30 minutes after his supposed departure, James arrived. Marcus watched through multiple camera angles as his wife opened the door for his best friend, as they kissed in his hallway, as they went to his office and sat at his desk. Elena pulled out the note card with the bank account information, the one Marcus had left for her to find. "This is it," she said, her voice clear on the audio recording. $1.2 million. Once we transfer this, we're set. James logged into the account, using Marcus's stolen credentials. Marcus watched his best friend's fingers on his keyboard, accessing money that would destroy him. The irony was beautiful. Every keystroke was being recorded by 3 different systems, all admissible in court. Offshore account? Elena asked. Ready and waiting, James confirmed. Untraceable, outside U.S. jurisdiction. By the time Marcus realizes what happened, we'll be gone. They initiated the transfer, $1.2 million moving from Marcus's new account to James's offshore account. Federal alarms went off instantly in FBI databases, but Marcus had arranged a 48-hour delay in response. He wanted them to think they'd succeeded. He wanted them to celebrate, to spend some of it, to dig themselves deeper. The transfer completed. Elena and James stared at the screen, then at each other. Then they were laughing, hugging, celebrating. We did it, Elena breathed. We actually did it. We're free. Drop justice in the comments if you think they deserve what's coming. And make sure you're subscribed because the trap is about to snap shut. And it's going to be absolutely devastating. Marcus watched them celebrate stealing his life savings, and he felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They had no idea they'd just committed multiple federal felonies, all documented in high definition from 6 different camera angles with crystal clear audio. They had no idea the money they'd stolen was marked and tracked. They had no idea that their untraceable offshore account was already flagged by federal authorities. They thought they were smart. They thought they'd won. They had no idea they were about to lose everything. Over the next 48 hours, Marcus watched through his surveillance systems as Elena and James made their situation exponentially worse. They met with Elena's divorce attorney, discussing strategy for the false domestic violence allegations. We need photos, the attorney said. Bruises, evidence of abuse. Marcus watched Elena nod, watched her discuss hiring someone to rough her up, just enough to create convincing injuries. That was conspiracy to file a false police report, perjury, and fraud upon the court. More felonies for the pile. James, meanwhile, was celebrating by transferring even more money from the business accounts. He'd gotten greedy, confident after the successful theft of Marcus's personal savings. He moved another $500,000 from accounts Marcus had given him access to as a business partner. Money that was supposed to be for payroll and operating expenses. He was stealing from their employees now, from people who depended on those paychecks. Marcus documented every transfer, every crime, feeling his case grow stronger by the hour. Sunday evening, Elena called Marcus's phone. He was still in Detroit, still maintaining the fiction. Hey, honey, she said, her voice sweet and loving. Marcus felt disgust listening to her act. How's the trial prep going? Exhausting, Marcus said, making his voice tired. This case is brutal. I'll be back late Monday. Take your time, Elena said. I miss you, but I want you to do well. You work so hard for us. Every word was a lie. Every endearment was manipulation. She was planning to serve him with divorce papers and a restraining order based on false domestic violence allegations within 72 hours. But she sounded so loving, so supportive. It was masterful acting, and it would sound devastating to a jury. Monday morning arrived. Marcus returned to Chicago, but not to his home. He went directly to his office, where his entire legal team was waiting. Rebecca Martinez with her surveillance files, Marcus's senior associate with the financial documentation, and 2 FBI agents Marcus had been coordinating with for the past week. We're ready to move? Agent Carson asked. Marcus nodded. They've committed every crime we need: financial fraud, conspiracy, identity theft. Wire fraud because they used electronic transfers. The offshore account adds money laundering. Elena's planning to file false domestic violence allegations today, which adds multiple additional charges. James has stolen from the business, which is embezzlement. We have them on at least 15 separate felonies, all documented, all on video or audio recording. And you're certain you want to proceed? Agent Martinez asked. Once we move, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Your friendship is destroyed. This becomes very public. It was over the moment they decided to steal from me, Marcus said. I'm just making sure they pay for it. Let's execute. The FBI moved first, with Marcus's authorization as the victim and as the person who'd set up the marked money trap. Agents appeared at James's apartment at 6 a.m. with a warrant for his arrest. They seized his computers, his phones, his financial records. James, still half asleep, kept saying he didn't understand, hadn't done anything wrong. You transferred $1.2 million in marked federal funds, Agent Carson explained as he cuffed James. You really thought we wouldn't notice? The realization on James's face as he understood he'd been caught was captured on the FBI's body camera footage. Marcus made sure he got a copy. Simultaneously, other agents appeared at Marcus's brownstone with a warrant to search for evidence of conspiracy. Elena answered the door in her robe, confused and frightened. Is Marcus Wheeler here? No, he's in Detroit. What is this about? We have reason to believe there's evidence of financial crimes committed from this residence. We need to search the property. Elena's face went pale. She tried to call Marcus, but he didn't answer. She tried to call James, but he was already in custody. She was alone, watching federal agents search her home, finding the burner phone she'd used to communicate with James, the documents about offshore accounts, the notes about divorce strategy. Everything she'd thought was hidden was being discovered, cataloged, and seized as evidence. By 9 a.m., Elena was also under arrest. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to file false police reports. The charges kept mounting as agents discovered more evidence. Her expensive divorce attorney, arriving for their scheduled meeting, found Elena in handcuffs instead. "I need to speak with my client," the attorney demanded. "You'll have time," Agent Martinez said. "She's going to need a very good lawyer, one who specializes in federal criminal defense, not divorce." The attorney's face went white as she realized what her client had done and how thoroughly she'd been caught. Marcus arrived at the FBI field office at noon, officially giving his statement as the victim. He walked through the timeline, provided all his documentation, handed over the surveillance footage. The agents were impressed. "In 20 years, I've never seen a victim document their own case this thoroughly," Agent Carson said. "You should have been a prosecutor." "I prefer corporate law," Marcus said. "Better pay, but I know how to build a case." "They're going to try to make a deal," Agent Martinez warned. "They'll offer to return the money, plead down, argue they didn't mean to go through with it. They transferred marked federal funds to an offshore account," Marcus said. "They stole additional money from business accounts. Elena was planning to file false domestic violence charges to strengthen her divorce case. They crossed from conspiracy into action multiple times. There's no deal I'm interested in. I want them prosecuted to the fullest extent possible." The agents nodded. It was Marcus's call as the victim, and he was making it clear. No mercy. The arraignment was set for Tuesday morning. Marcus sat in the courtroom, watching as Elena and James were brought in wearing orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed. Elena's eyes found him immediately, and he saw the moment she understood. He'd known all along. He'd let them go forward. He'd documented everything. This wasn't just prosecution. This was a setup they'd walked into willingly. "You knew," Elena mouthed across the courtroom. Marcus smiled. Just smiled. Let her understand exactly how badly she'd underestimated him. The judge read the charges. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Identity theft. Attempted theft of marked federal funds. Money laundering. Conspiracy to file false police reports. Embezzlement. The list went on and on, each charge carrying years of potential prison time. Bail was set impossibly high. Neither Elena nor James could make it. They'd be staying in federal custody until trial. The story hit the news that afternoon. Chicago attorney catches wife and business partner in elaborate fraud scheme. The details were sensational. The marked money trap, the hidden surveillance, the systematic documentation of multiple felonies. Legal experts were calling it one of the most comprehensive victim-led investigations in recent history. Marcus's phone exploded with calls from reporters, from other attorneys wanting to know his techniques, from potential clients who suddenly wanted representation from a lawyer who could dismantle criminals this thoroughly. The publicity was enormous, and all of it painted Marcus as a brilliant strategist who'd outplayed people trying to destroy him. Elena and James's mugshots were everywhere. Their reputations, their careers, their lives were being destroyed in real time. Marcus watched the coverage from his office, feeling satisfaction but not joy. He'd wanted justice, and he was getting it. But there was no pleasure in seeing people he'd once loved, completely devastated, even if they deserved it. The story is about to reach its conclusion, and the justice is going to be perfect. Stay tuned because you need to see how completely this falls apart for them. Make sure you're subscribed because this ending will be absolutely satisfying. The trial preparation took 4 months. Elena and James both tried to make deals. They offered to return the money, to plead guilty to reduced charges, to cooperate fully. The prosecutors weren't interested. They had video evidence, audio recordings, financial documentation, and a victim who'd built a perfect case. This was going to trial, and they were confident of conviction. Marcus had to give a deposition, reliving the discovery of betrayal, explaining how he'd built his trap. The defense attorneys tried to paint him as vindictive, as someone who'd set up his own wife and best friend, rather than just confronting them. Marcus's attorney shut that down quickly. Mr. Wheeler discovered ongoing criminal activity. He documented it legally and reported it to authorities. That's not vindictive. That's responsible citizenship. If your clients didn't want to be prosecuted for fraud, they shouldn't have committed fraud. The defense had nothing. Every argument they tried was countered by video evidence, by audio recordings, by financial documentation that couldn't be disputed. During discovery, Marcus learned just how deep the betrayal went. Elena and James had been planning this for over a year, not just 2 weeks. They'd been skimming smaller amounts from business accounts for months, building their nest egg. They'd researched the best ways to destroy Marcus's reputation, so he'd be too busy defending himself to notice the missing money. They'd discussed making it look like he had a gambling problem, a drug problem, anything to explain why money was disappearing, and to make him seem unstable if he reported them. The level of premeditation was chilling. These weren't crimes of passion or opportunity. This was calculated, long-term conspiracy to destroy Marcus financially, personally, and professionally. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Marcus attended every day, sitting behind the prosecution, his presence a constant reminder to Elena and James of who they'd betrayed. The jury heard the phone conversations, watched the video footage of the theft, reviewed the financial documents showing systematic fraud. They heard FBI agents testify about the marked money trap, about how stupid James had been to transfer federal funds to an offshore account and think no one would notice. Elena's planned false domestic violence allegations were particularly damaging to her case. The prosecution played her recorded conversation about hiring someone to rough her up, about creating fake injuries to strengthen her divorce case. This isn't just fraud, the prosecutor told the jury in closing arguments. This is a conspiracy to destroy a man's life, to steal everything he'd worked for, and then to have him arrested on false charges to prevent him from defending himself. This is evil masquerading as marriage. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned guilty verdicts on all counts for both defendants. Marcus watched Elena break down crying as the verdict was read. James sat in stunned silence, finally understanding that his life was over. Sentencing came 2 months later. The judge was harsh, clearly appalled by the calculated nature of the crimes and the abuse of personal relationships to commit them. "You didn't just steal money," the judge told Elena. "You violated sacred trust. You planned to destroy your husband's reputation with false criminal allegations. You showed no remorse until you were caught. I see no reason for leniency." Elena was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. James got 15. The extra time because he'd also embezzled from the business and betrayed professional responsibilities as an attorney. Both would have to pay restitution, not just the $1.7 million they'd stolen, but additional damages the civil court would determine. Their professional licenses were revoked. Their reputations were destroyed. Their lives were effectively over. Marcus felt no triumph watching them sentenced, just a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served. He'd been betrayed by the 2 people he trusted most, and he'd ensured they paid for every moment of that betrayal. As Marcus left the courthouse, reporters surrounded him with questions. "Mr. Wheeler, how do you feel about the sentences?" "I feel justice was served appropriately," Marcus said. "My only regret is that I trusted people who were never worthy of that trust." "Would you do anything differently?" "I would have paid more attention to who they really were, rather than who I wanted them to be. But once I discovered what they were doing, no, I wouldn't change how I handled it." I documented crimes and reported them to authorities. That's what any citizen should do. Do you think the sentences were too harsh? A reporter called out. Marcus stopped, turned back. They planned for over a year to steal everything I'd worked for. They were going to have me arrested on false domestic violence charges. They were going to destroy my reputation, my career, my life. And they thought they'd get away with it because they assumed I was too trusting to notice. 12 and 15 years seems appropriate for that level of betrayal and criminality. If anything, it's lenient. The clip went viral. Marcus became something of a folk hero, the man who'd turned the tables on people trying to destroy him. Law schools used his case as an example of proper evidence documentation. Attorneys referenced his techniques in handling their own fraud cases. Marcus's firm exploded with new clients, people who wanted representation from someone who clearly knew how to dismantle criminals from the inside. 6 months after the trial, Marcus filed for divorce. It was uncontested since Elena was in federal prison. He got everything. The house, the remaining assets, even compensation for emotional damages. Elena had no grounds to contest anything, not after being convicted of trying to steal from him. The business took longer to unwind. Marcus had to buy out James's shares, compensate employees who'd been affected by the embezzlement, rebuild trust with clients who'd worried about the firm's stability. But he did it methodically, the same way he'd built the case against Elena and James. Within a year, Wheeler & Associates was stronger than ever, with Marcus's reputation as a formidable attorney enhancing rather than harming the firm's image. He never remarried. He dated occasionally but kept relationships casual. The betrayal had left scars, a wariness about trusting anyone completely. His therapist said it was normal, that he'd been traumatized by people he loved. Marcus didn't feel traumatized. He felt educated. He'd learned that people were capable of extraordinary selfishness, that love could be faked, that trust needed to be earned continuously rather than given automatically. It wasn't a cynical lesson exactly, just a realistic one. 2 years after the trial, Marcus received a letter from Elena in prison. She'd written several times, but he'd never opened them. This one he read, curious what she could possibly have to say after everything. The letter was surprisingly self-aware. Elena wrote about how she'd let greed poison her, how she'd convinced herself Marcus didn't appreciate her, how she'd justified the affair and the theft by creating a narrative where he was the villain and she was the victim. She admitted it was all lies, self-deception, a way to avoid facing her own moral bankruptcy. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She said she didn't deserve it. She just wanted him to know she finally understood what she'd destroyed, and that she was sorry. Marcus read it twice, then filed it away. He appreciated the honesty, but it changed nothing. Sorry didn't undo a year of conspiracy. Sorry didn't erase the plan to have him arrested on false charges. Sorry was just a word people used when facing consequences they couldn't escape. 5 years after everything exploded, Marcus was sitting in his office on a Friday evening, reviewing files for Monday's trial, when his assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Wheeler? There's someone here to see you. Says he's an old friend, but he's not on your calendar." Marcus frowned. He didn't do unscheduled meetings. "Who is it?" "Name is David Chen. Says he's James's brother." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He hadn't heard anything about James's family since the trial. "Send him in." David Chen was younger than James, maybe 35, nervous in an expensive suit. He sat across from Marcus's desk without being invited, which immediately annoyed Marcus. "I know you don't owe me anything," David started. "I know what my brother did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know. James died last week, prison fight. Someone found out he was a lawyer and decided ex-attorneys were fair game." Marcus felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness, just a distant acknowledgement of information. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said automatically. "Are you?" David's voice was bitter. "Because you destroyed him. You could have just confronted him. Could have reported the theft without setting him up. But you set a trap and documented everything like you were building a case for the death penalty. Your brother tried to steal $1.7 million from me, Marcus said coldly. He conspired with my wife for over a year. He was going to help her file false criminal charges against me. I documented crimes he actually committed. I didn't set him up. He walked into consequences of his own actions. He's dead because you couldn't just let it go. He's dead because he made choices that led to prison, and prison is dangerous, Marcus replied. I'm not responsible for what happened to him there. If you're looking for me to feel guilty, you're going to be disappointed. Your brother betrayed me in the worst way possible. I ensured he paid for it legally. What happened after that isn't my concern. David stood up, his face red. You're a monster. You destroyed 2 lives over money. I protected myself from people trying to destroy me, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. And if you came here hoping I'd somehow take responsibility for your brother's choices, you wasted your time. I don't feel guilty. I don't regret what I did. And I'd do exactly the same thing again. David left without another word. Marcus sat in his office afterward, examining his feelings about James's death. He found he felt nothing but a distant sort of closure. James had betrayed him, conspired to destroy him, and paid the consequences. Marcus hadn't killed him, hadn't even wished him dead. But he wasn't going to mourn him either. So what do you think? Did Marcus go too far? Or did Elena and James get exactly what they deserved? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop your story below. Let's build a community of people who refuse to be victims. And make sure you're subscribed because there are so many more stories about justice and standing up for yourself coming your way. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. Remember, trust is earned, not owed. And when someone shows you they're willing to destroy you, believe them. Protect yourself first, always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.